Well, let's get an expert view. Head of the Melbourne School of Population and Global Health and clinical epidemiologist Nancy Baxter joins us now. Good morning. This is very big news that we are absorbing this morning. What's your take on it?
Well, you know, it's unfortunate that this study had to stop because the vaccine looked like it was going to be an effective vaccine. And I think what's important to note is if we were in a different position right now, if none of the other vaccines looked like they were going to work, then having some false positive HIV tests would have been something the world would have accepted as necessary to actually make people immune to COVID-19. People are not at risk of getting HIV from this vaccine. It's a protein and the body is creating an antibody to that protein. So there's no risk to the individual. But obviously, if we have other great options for vaccines, then it doesn't make sense for people to have a false positive HIV test. So that's why this is stopped. So we're really in a very fortunate position to have multiple vaccines that look like they're going to be effective. So that's great. But I think Scott Morrison is really putting a very positive spin on this because the vaccines that are closest to being approved, the ones that have been approved in other countries, we only have, that's the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, and we only have 10 million doses of the Pfizer. We have no doses of the Moderna vaccine. And with the entire world kind of jockeying for any additional manufacturing capacity in 2021, I don't think we're going to be getting any additional doses of those vaccines for 2021. And those are the closest to approval.
Nancy Baxter, they rattled through the numbers today saying an extra 20 million of the AstraZeneca have already been ordered, an extra 11 million of the Novavax. You're saying that really doesn't advance our situation terribly much because it's all about Pfizer at the moment and we only have 10 million doses of Pfizer.
Well, I don't doubt that, Australians are going to be vaccinated. We're going to have an effective, safe vaccine, and we have the luxury of having time to be able to really evaluate these vaccines to see what's happening in other countries with these vaccines because, we don't have a raging epidemic in Australia. So we can go through the normal mechanisms. We don't have to have emergency approvals. We can make sure that this is done in a very safe way. But the problem is that the vaccines that are closest to actually being approved, the ones that have been approved, the ones where we have really excellent data for, everybody wants those vaccines, and we don't have any special access to them. So we're going to be in a line for them. Now, it may be with further research on the AstraZeneca vaccine, we find that it is as effective as the Pfizer product. Currently, it doesn't seem to be. Certainly, it's easier to administer. It can be created on shore. So there are definite benefits to it. But the benefit doesn't seem to be that it's a better vaccine than the Pfizer vaccine.
Nancy Baxter, before you go, I just want to ask you, because we've got National Cabinet today and, of course, they're talking about borders, they're talking about international students perhaps coming back in, whether they're quarantining in hotels or quarantining on campus. Queensland has announced that New Zealanders will be able to come in from 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. Where do you think Australia sits with this gradual reopening? Do people in the field like yourself still have some concern about the speed of it and what the risks are that might lie ahead?
Well, now that we seem to have no community spread within Australia, the risk is always with returning travellers. And so we need to have a very close surveillance, we need to control the quarantine. I think one of the things that we can do to reduce our risk is when we open up, thinking about the countries that we open up to. So, looking at things like opening up with New Zealand, some of the other countries where the epidemic's under control. This is a way of mitigating our risk. I think that has to be very fluid, though, because as we've seen, numbers can change very quickly in a particular country. So I think that we'll need to be very clear-eyed about these types of arrangements with, low risk countries because their risk could change. But, I feel quite comfortable about opening up to New Zealand. They're in a very good position right now.
Yeah, Nancy Baxter, great to have you on the program this morning, giving us a bit of context with everything we've heard. Thank you.
Thank you.